Picture this. A container ship leaves Shanghai at midnight. Its cargo is worth millions. The buyer is in Europe. The seller is in Asia. The payment will clear in New York. No one on that ship voted for the country backing the deal that makes this trade possible. No one on board even knows it exists. And yet, without one quiet behind-the-scenes agreement, that ship might never sail at all. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people miss. Global trade doesn't run on free markets. It runs on trust. And that trust is propped up by a deal most governments never advertise. Right now, that deal matters more than at any point since the last financial crisis. Because the world is trading more, with more debt, using less margin for error. And if this mechanism snaps, trade doesn't slow, it freezes. Let's rewind. Every international trade has one invisible problem. Currencies don't match. A Korean exporter doesn't want Brazilian reais. A German importer doesn't want Thai baht. They both want the same thing: dollars. Not because dollars are perfect, but because they're liquid, accepted everywhere, and, crucially, settle fast. Today, over 80% of global trade touches the US dollar at some point, even when the US isn't involved. Oil from Saudi Arabia to India? Dollars. Copper from Chile to China? Dollars. Wheat from Ukraine to Egypt? Dollars. So here's the setup. Banks all over the world promise dollars they don't actually print. European banks, Japanese banks, emerging market banks. They borrow dollars short-term to fund long-term trade. Most of the time this works fine, until it doesn't. Because when stress hits, war, inflation, banking fear, everyone wants dollars at the same time. And that's where global trade usually dies. Except it hasn't. Why? Because behind the scenes there's a deal that quietly turns on the dollar tap. It's called the central bank dollar swap line. Not catchy, not headline friendly, but absolutely critical. Here's how it works in plain language. The U.S. Federal Reserve makes a private agreement with select foreign central banks. The European Central Bank, the Bank of Japan, the Bank of England, a few others. The deal is simple. If your banks need dollars, we'll lend them to you. You give us your currency as collateral. We swap back later. No drama. That's it. No Congress vote, no press conference countdown, no cable news channel. Just a phone call between central bankers. During calm times, these swap lines sit idle. During panic, they become the backbone of global trade. In 2008, they exploded. At the peak of the financial crisis, over $580 billion flowed through these lines. Banks didn't fail because they suddenly became honest. They survived because dollars kept showing up. In 2020, it happened again. As the world shut down, trade financing froze overnight. Shipping companies couldn't roll short-term dollar loans. Importers couldn't pay exporters. Within days, the Fed reopened and expanded swap lines. Markets calmed almost immediately. Not because the virus disappeared, but because dollars did. Here's the uncomfortable math. The U.S. is the only country that can create unlimited dollars. But global trade needs far more dollars than the U.S. economy itself uses. So the Fed, whether it admits it or not, acts as the world's offshore dollar lender. This is not charity, it's self-defense. If foreign banks collapse from dollar shortages, U.S. banks feel it. U.S. companies feel it. U.S. markets feel it. Global trade seizing up would hit America last, but hardest. Now here's the part no one likes to say out loud. Not everyone gets access. Only a small club of countries has permanent swap lines. Others must beg or pay through the nose in private markets. That's why crises hit emerging markets first. Their currencies drop, dollar debt explodes, trade contracts vanish. Same system, different outcomes. There's a quiet irony here. Politicians argue about trade wars, tariffs, and reshoring. Meanwhile, the plumbing that keeps trade alive runs deeper than policy. Even countries publicly criticizing the US dollar still depend on it privately. They rail against dollar dominance during the day. At night, their banks line up for dollar liquidity. Now let's zoom out. This deal doesn't just support trade, it shapes power. If your central bank has a swap line, your economy gets oxygen during panic. If it doesn't, you suffocate. That's leverage without sanctions, influence without speeches. And the risk is growing. Global trade volumes are rising again. Debt levels are higher than ever. Supply chains are longer, not shorter. At the same time, inflation has forced central banks to tighten. Liquidity is scarcer. Tolerance for risk is lower, which means the system is more fragile, not less. One miscalculation, one major bank mispricing dollar funding, one political standoff that delays a swap line renewal, and suddenly letters of credit don't clear. Ships wait at port, factories pause. Not because goods don't exist, but because the dollars don't. This is where hype collides with reality. You'll hear about alternative systems, digital currencies, new trade blocks, local currency settlement. Some of these ideas matter long-term, but today, if you remove the Fed's dollar backstop, global trade doesn't transition, it snaps. And the quiet truth is this: the deal only works because everyone believes it will be honored tomorrow. Trust is the real collateral. So here's the final question. As geopolitics harden, as debt climbs, as countries openly plan for a post-dollar world, what happens when the system that everyone relies on is the same system no one wants to admit they need? Because global trade isn't held together by ships or ports or contracts. It's held together by a promise. And every promise has a breaking point.